Good afternoon, everyone. We're going to go ahead and get started. Welcome. We're going to spend the next 45 minutes getting into freight market uncertainty, and Stella will step us through some of the numbers there. We're then going to have Patrick touch on some advice for shippers, and then I would be closing on behalf of technology providers and managed trans. Let me introduce the panel here. To my right, Stella Carneiro. She is a senior data scientist and economist for Loadsmart. Then Patrick Aragao, CEO of Aragao Consulting. And my name is Robb Porter, and I'm the president and head of Shipper Solutions and Managed Transportation for Loadsmart. As I said, we're going to touch on these three areas. We should have enough time on the back end for some questions, so if you've got those, go ahead and keep those to the end, and we'll go ahead and tackle those with time permitting. Go ahead, Stella.
Okay, so before we think about how the next quarters will play out, I would like to describe how we calculate our base drive-in rate at Loadsmart. So when we talk about creating a market rate, that a rate that describes the market well, we considered these top 30 regions that are the most active regions in the freight market, drive-in wise. So the regions selected here, they are used to calculate the rate. So we only take all-in carrier rate from loads that are hauling outbound in these top 30 regions. So you have here Southern California, East Texas, and the great Lake Michigan area, including Chicago there. So using only the average rates from these regions, we calculate this drive-in rate, and it's we benchmark with Sonar OTRI, and as we see here, we do a good job because the correlation between the Sonar OTRI and our rate is very high. So moving on, we have the rate here, and as you've seen, the black line is the observational rate, and the blue line refers to the forecast that we do in Loadsmart. So the forecast is done by a model that we've built internally, and this model includes the rate itself, so the historical rate that we have back from 2017, and also some macroeconomic indicators. So we have data from consumer spending, imports, industrial production. All these variables are combined together, and we have then also the observation points and also the projections of these macroeconomic variables. So the projections are coming from government agencies. We use official projections when we do the forecasts in our model. So some of the projections come from the CBO, which is the Congressional Budget Office, and others come from the EIA, which is the Energy Agency. And the model spits out the rate that you see there, where we have what we show here is a peak in the third quarter, and then in the fourth quarter, a slowdown. December is the exception, of course. So December we have the rates rising up just a bit, and this is because of Black Friday and Christmas week, where we expect to have some pockets of tightness, with a rise in around 70% week over week in rates during the week after Black Friday, where the goods are shipped, and also in the week of Christmas. But besides that, we don't see a reason why we should have higher rates in the fourth quarter, because what I think here, when we have evidence, is of a peak season pull ahead, which it has happened in the third quarter. So here I gather some evidence of this peak season pull ahead. So you can see that after March, we have a steady increase in the monthly imports to the U.S. And in the same time, we see that inventories to sales ratio, which is the metric for the retailers here, started to rise as well. So I think this gathers evidence that retailers started to build up inventories before for peak season. And the two reasons for that we see happening last year and this year is stronger, that this peak season pull ahead is because there's a growing concern of a potential strike that it's probably gonna happen. By this week we'll know if it will happen. And also we see that in November there's a high chance that import tariffs change. So after the election, after November, we might have new import tariffs, and I think the retailers were going ahead and also pre-shipping their goods for the holiday season. So apart from that, we're also skeptical about the fourth quarter, and this is the main reason. This is the chart I keep track month by month. It's as important as our rates, and this is the number of active carriers in the market. So this considers only for hire. It doesn't consider private fleet. And historically, I'll just go quickly on the timeline of what happened. So in 2020, we had the unexpected combination of two factors, which was the high unemployment in the service sector and also the growth in demand for drivers. And what happened? These factors combined, they cause and also there was a rise in earnings per mile paid by drivers, right? Because they were in high demand. So combine these two factors, you have this great amount of carriers joining the market. 2021, the situation remained the same. The trend is similar. At 2022, we started to have a spot rate downturn. So in the first quarter, spot rates started to go down. And the carriers who were heavily dependent on the spot market already began exiting the market. So we see that the trend has reversed. In 2023, the situation remained the same. So the rates bottom out in the second quarter, and spot rates bottom out, and carrier rates are near the bottom. But a sudden spike in diesel prices also accelerated carrier exit. So the situation remained, and the exodus remained in 2023. And what we see in 2024 is a different story. So the sudden spike of diesel was gone, and now we have consecutive declines in diesel prices, and this has been helping carriers stay afloat. But we see that the process will continue. We forecast that the process will continue because we're seeing in Loadsmart the shippers pressuring for contract rates below what we consider to be the break-even price of these $2.30 per mile. And I think this eventually will lead to more bankruptcies in the end of 2024 and also in 2025 when we migrate. In the first half of the year, we finish this exodus and we will migrate to a market that is more balanced. So we have balancing supply and demand, and we might be ready for an upcycle. On another part, like naturally, we look a lot to spot rates because they lead contract rates, so they move first, and naturally, after spot rates move, we see that contracts move in the same direction. So our forecast is focused on spot rates, but talking about contract a little bit, we see that now, for the first time in 2 years, carriers are actually paying less when it comes to contract because of this rise in spot rates. So we see that for the first time we saw in September that contract rates were actually lower. But what we are thinking or perceiving by the next quarter or so, that this difference, I think this difference will remain very small, and it might even reverse because with spot rates declining and shippers pushing for lower contract rates, we might have the difference to remain minimal, or maybe it will reverse at some point. And just a reminder, the chart that I'm talking about here is by pickup date, so it's defined there. So it's not when the contract was settled, but it's by when the load is being shipped that I'm referring to. So yeah, that is a lot what we try to forecast, and I think like uncertainty still remains in the market, although we're doing our job here and analyzing all the data. And to talk about more about mitigating these uncertainty risks and how to operate in this market, I will have Patrick here from the shipper side.
Okay. Thank you, Stella, for the great insights. It's a pleasure to be here. Good afternoon. My first time speaking at this conference. And in the next couple of slides, we are going to dive into a topic that really affects all of us, right? This uncertainty on the freight market. Whether you are a large corporation or you are a mid-sized corporation, we are all in the same boat. So moving next here. I will start by discussing a little bit of the foundation. So first I'm going to try to compare and contrast scenarios from the enterprise organizations and mid-market on those foundational pillars, so people, process, and technology. So usually when we look for an enterprise and we look for the people side of the business, they can afford a large talent pool, right? They have a lot of SMEs and they have a succession plan. In other hands, we have the mid-sized organizations that are pretty nimble, that are, I would say, with their kind of end-to-end supply chain organization with people using multiple hats, needs to be agile and flexible. On the process side, enterprise has I would say, the luxury most of the time to have kind of a well-defined process, routines, some level of optimization, and again, on the mid-market side, basic risk management routines, some of the daily, weekly meetings to discuss what's going on. And it's usually more reactive than proactive. But again, it's not right or wrong. That's the reality. On the technology side, it's also a big gap. So in one side, big corporations with cutting-edge technology, automation, I would say a lot of optimization, AI, machine learning, Gen AI that we discuss a lot today. So those big corporations are investing and they are, I would say, going first because, I mean, sometimes there is no budget constraint. In other hand, the mid-sized companies are more, I would say, developing expertise, I would say starting to move into cloud, starting to touch and scratch the surface when we talk about technology, all those SaaS solutions. But again, they are also smart and they are focused on cost-effective solutions. They are looking for budget-friendly solutions. And again, we have market for that. We have a lot of vendors, including this conference, that are offering those type of service. Yeah, I was looking my old computer here. Never fails. But I'm gonna wait a little bit here so we can all talk and see the same thing. You see, supply chain, so dealing with the uncertainty. So that's our life.
It's working. I changed.
No worries.
Swap from there. Take my phone. Password's 3826 and call Lloyd. And then call, go to the phone bottom left and call Lloyd again.
Just leave it the old cable. Professor.
It's fine. It's blink and blink.
Yeah.
Just continue down the slides, maybe.
No. Let's give another. We can give another minute or so, and we can continue.
Do what? Yeah. Yeah, that's an option too. We could get through the content without having, make it conversational.
Hey folks, we have an option here, Plan B. So you guys can keep working, try to figure out a solution, not a problem. But given that the second computer is here and Rob has his content on top of his mind, we can go ahead and do more as an open discussion here. We're gonna cover the topic. I think that the insights Stella could cover a lot, so the big numbers, the big figures. But what I was trying to compare and contrast here when we look for corporations and mid-size, it's okay. Agility, but okay. I think I cover a little bit of the people, process, and technology here, and I was moving more to some of the critical factors that affect on today's market. So first of all, if I would summarize this into three big things in terms of critical factors, I would say cost containment. For sure, we are always trying to optimize our cost, optimize our network, leverage our cost optimization opportunities, either to dynamic pricing models, either to leveraging data more effectively, but also resilience, right? There is no supply chain without resilience. And on that, I would say we need to think about our capacity management, right? How we secure our capacity in the tight market situations, how we balance for the ones that can afford the dedicated fleet, contract and spot, for the ones that are more on the contract and spot market, how you balance to try to balance cost to serve, and for sure, data-driven decisions, right? We are on the let's say on the decade of the data. Data, it's becoming more and more available. If it's the data about your SLA with your customers, if it's the data about your loads, if it's the data about the economic figures. So it's very, very important to make this transition to a more, I would say, I know what I'm doing, into a decision-driven discussion. It's easier to discuss with your, I would say, internal partners. It's easier to discuss with your clients, with your vendors, when you have the data. But okay, but we talk about those, I would say, 4 points or 3 main topics, but how we bridge this gap, right? Because we still have the gap. So my advice here would be, I would say, when you talk about the mid-sized companies or mid-sized shippers, is through collaboration technology. So how can you look for partnerships that can either be your broker, that can be your TMS provider, that can be your track and trace provider, or that can be a player that can offer all at once. So you can cover not only the gaps that are driven to your lack of structure in terms of people or process, so you can leverage that through partnerships, but also on the technology side. Sometimes, I mean, it costs a lot of money to buy your own TMS, to do your own yard management solution, developing home, or buy from those, I would say, large players on the market. Sometimes you need someone that has already this available on their ecosystems, and you go there, build this partnership, and leverage this partnership. For the large enterprise, is to learn with the mid-sized companies how they are nimble, how they are flexible and agile. So that there is always opportunity to learn. But I mean, those 4 topics here, when you talk about the partnerships and collaboration that I mentioned, the risk mitigation through data. So how can you get your market insights? How can you get your reports showing what the economics, what the models are predicting to you, and leverage this in your organization, rather to scalable shared tech solutions, as I mentioned here. And the 4th one is how you look for your operational efficiency. Again, streamline process as possible. Gen AI is there, can do some trials, you can look for those opportunities out there to leverage. You can enhance your visibility, put in place your control over the shipments to a control tower solution, to data and analytics. And again, look for opportunities also out there that can support you on your problem solvings, on your optimizations again. But again, better than myself here now with the shipper point of view talking about the solutions available, I'd like to hand over to my colleague here and supplier, Robb Porter, that is going to talk a little bit on what Loadsmart can help the industry. Robb, over to you.
Thanks, Patrick. So obviously, market uncertainty, market dynamics, all ever present. I mean, we're talking about moving from a shipper-friendly to a carrier-friendly sector, but at the end of the day, it's always there. Patrick touched on some of the various factors and so forth, and ways to bridge that. Speaking from the standpoint of technology and services, what we tend to find is that it is increasingly a situation where there's far more optionality available to shippers. Rarely do we have engagements with shippers where they come with a prescribed buying intent. It's not, my name is John, nice to meet you, I'm here to replace my TMS, or I'm going to outsource my transportation. It's literally, I've got the various pain points. I'm trying to navigate the uncertainties. I'm trying to figure out capacity problems. I perhaps am dealing with turnover, right, in a incredibly challenging talent sector, right, inside logistics. So they just present challenges, and more times than not, it's not prescribed. It's just a function of how do we figure out how to go solve those problems. Whether you're talking about bolstering or augmenting enterprise shippers who are, in many cases today, facing sourcing strategy and, quite honestly, org design decisions, where historically they may have had, yes, I've got my TMS, I've got my organization, this is how, or maybe I'm going to work proprietary. They're looking at the pace of change in the tech sector. They're looking at, how do I keep up with that? How do I continue to keep my folks abreast of that? And they're rethinking that entirely. That doesn't mean that they necessarily don't keep it at the core on the enterprise shippers, perhaps, but they're looking to say, maybe I need to augment maybe I need to add differentiating technology into my ecosystem. If you look at mid-market shippers, again, right, we do a lot of work with private equities and portcos, and there are different scenarios. It could be I'm turning around a failing organization. How do I get the return on assets? How do I get lean as quickly as possible? Or maybe it's a new brand that's growing at exponential rates, adding new channels. Again, the challenge is how do we go navigate this? What is the right technology solution? How do I augment and scale the business? Increasingly, the days of it's kind of an all or nothing, massive cost, massive deployments for TMSs, or sure, outsource the entire function. That is really, quite honestly, not what we're seeing. It's number one, it's expensive. Two, it's timely, and it's at the same time, right? It does really an over course correction. So we're seeing a lot of niche solutions, if you will, generally driven by differentiating complementary technology, which does go back to what we're talking about. It's advanced analytics. Sure, there's AI components, and we couldn't be here for 2 days and not hear the different ways in which people are defining and deploying, and what AI means to different players and different folks. But at the end of the day, it really does come back to understanding your data, figuring out how to navigating the marketplace, and of course, data is at the core of that. The other way that we look at this is the chart to the left is basically all of the fundamental functions or activities that are required to manage transportation, whether that be in-house or within your ecosystem, et cetera. And so in addition, when we're kind of hearing customers come to us and say, I've got the following pain points or symptoms or problems, we're also opening it up and just saying, let's take a look and assess. And what I always say is 8 out of 10 times, there's going to be something that there's going to be breakthrough. And it might be rates compression, it might be planning optimization, there might be different areas around sourcing strategies, it might be some enabling tech, but rarely do we have a situation where we take a look and come back and go, yeah, everything's copacetic, there's nothing really to go address. But again, it does come back to trying to go solve those problems, and you do have a situation today where you have progressive, I'll call it next gen, where you've got technology-led providers that can meet customers where they are. And again, depending on where they are in their org design, where they are in their sourcing strategy, where they are in what problems are they trying to solve for. And then the other piece is, again, kind of buy the way they want to buy. I think, like I said earlier, this historically what always looked to be very expensive, and how am I going to get there, and how can I even corral the resources, and now I've got to bring integrators and consultants in. And the reality is what we're really finding today is you've got a lot of acceleration, you've got a lot happening in the space, but that's creating a lot of confusion. Shippers, buyers, if you will, are just trying to understand what are my options. But I think what's interesting is that in many cases there can be step change, material value creation at quite reasonable from the stand of speed as well as ways to get there. So again, this is just kind of what we're seeing in the marketplace today. It does go back to Patrick's broader view, but I just wanted to share from our perspective what we're seeing in the marketplace, where we're seeing the convergence of kind of all things within technology and outsourced services, and I'll call it shipper ecosystems relative to the space. That's probably, in my 30 years over the last 5 to 7, has seen more accelerated change than the prior 25. And so I think that pace of change and the additional opportunities and as we call optionality or plurality will create more opportunity, but it's going to continue to create a lot of confusion in the marketplace. So with that, I appreciate everyone's patience while we work through the technical difficulties, and I appreciate the team for getting us back up and running. I think we've got a few minutes here if anyone has any questions for anyone on the panel.
What's the most unique thing you've found in the marketplace? Somebody's doing something that, wow, nobody's ever thought of that, or maybe close to it, or is everybody kind of homogeneous throughout?
You know, to me, I think it's more, I don't know if there's the wow moments, because a lot of us, everyone's so head down and you don't even kind of pick your head up and then look around and see what's happening. For me, I think it just comes back to what's available and up and down the segment today versus just a few short years ago. Some of the things that we can put in the fingertips of if you will, SMB or even small enterprise shippers that would have been a pipe dream just a few years ago now, right? Whether it be advanced analytics at scale, the technologies and the inherent capabilities that are starting to become, right? Whether you want to talk about generative AI or you want to start talking about advanced analytics, the things that are now at the fingertips to folks that otherwise never, right? It was only the largest of the large guys had those at their fingertips. Today it's there. It's happening now. And it really is a situation where I think if I was to say, wow, if you kind of just stop for a moment and think about where we are right now, that's probably the most surprising. And it came probably a little quicker than most of us would have expected maybe a few years ago.
Yeah, just to chime in a little bit the technology is more kind of a commodity, right? If you look for a TMS on whatever browser or search engine you want to try, you're going to find thousands of solutions available. I think the key here, it's how can you find players that can support you not only with the technology, but with the expertise on the operational side as well. I think that this is a bit of the trend. My experience before, so let's say large corporation where I worked for more than a decade, was all about, I have the best ERP, so I have this or that ERP, and then if you need a TMS solution, I'm going to look for another vendor that has the best TMS solution. Then I'm going to look for a WMS solution from different players. And then later, you need the information, you need to invest a huge amount of money to prepare the ecosystem to extract information from several different places and get your KPIs. When you go on the market and you can find players, you can find partners that can provide you a whole bucket of solutions, that makes your life easier. So I think that's more, I would say, kind of the trend. So going for players that can offer to you the suite of applications plus the expertise in the industry, rather than, I'm going to buy the most expensive one, or I'm going to buy 10 different solutions just because it's nice, just because it's trendy.
The only thing that I would add a little bit to that is and again, the word ecosystem comes into play. Any technology company, service provider, they've got their own ecosystem, but then they need to go plug into the shipper's ecosystem, right? So that's probably the other kind of underlying. I've heard it, whether you want to talk about the APIs or the API economy or the plugin microservices. Those are critical enablers, but that's part of what comes back to now all of a sudden, creating these capabilities that previously were way out of reach, even for enterprise, let alone some of the small to mid market. So it can be quite confusing, and there's often a lot of new innovations or new players, and it's just incredibly dynamic. And as someone who's on the practitioner side, living in the intersection of technology and services, I can only imagine if I'm sitting as a shipper and I'm trying to navigate and just trying to keep track of my own business and what I'm trying to accomplish. Because again, there's just so much pace of change, so many new innovations happening all concurrently right now. It really is a situation where how can you partner, and your partnership network need to be there with and collaborate, right? We work closely with competitors. We work closely with our customers. That's just what's required to ultimately navigate on behalf of our customers. Any other questions? Are we at time? Okay, go ahead.
I don't like it. So you showed on the graph that contract is finally cheaper than spot at the current moment. So if you're running a procurement event and you're a shipper right now, how long do you hold those contracted rates for your carries? Do you a full year? Or when do you see that inflection point where it's going to change again, where the service drops and then tender rejections happen again? So I'm just curious from your point of view, like what quarter, yearly, when you think that change is going to happen?
So what we see is usually that spot rates moving first, and then in the next quarter, contracts will move, right? So what I think is probably gonna happen with interest rates coming down in the next quarters. I truly believe that after July, we're really prepared for this upturn, but probably we won't see that happening in the market because we need a big bid season to see rates really shifting. So probably throughout the next year, we'll still have stable and lower contract rates. And then it will be on the end of 2025, 2026, that we will probably see an upturn in the market, and then will be more worrisome for shippers to set contract at their lowest. So it's a good time to, as we see, shippers are exploring the fact that the market is weak. They're still exploring that, and what we see in Loadsmart is that we're gonna have probably near the bottom average contract rates, at least for the next 6 months.
Any other questions?
Okay. So,
All right. Thank you all. Appreciate it.
thank you.